Hello? Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. Many people have asked me why we came out here. That building over there, 115, is what's known as the Palestinian Mission. What does a Palestinian mission mean? It means it houses people who believe that 9/11 was a great thing, because you see from this photo, they danced on 9/11. When our wonderful policemen and firemen and EMTs and everybody else were murdered by Islamic jihadist terrorists. These are the same people that burn the American flag and put up their own flag in Washington, D.C., in our United States of America. These are the same people who, in the middle photo, take innocent men, women, and children, burn them alive, behead them, rape them, take them as hostages. Speaking of hostages, that we want the Palestinians to release immediately, and we mean immediately. Look at the girls in the top picture. The Palestinians raped these girls, abused these girls, keep some of them still in tunnels, and some they murdered. Please look at the picture in the middle. Two adorable children, 1-year-old and 3 years old. The youngest hostages ever. And the people in this building pay for slay. They pay those who are terrorists. We demand, and I mean demand, that they come out and show their faces. And please look at the bottom picture. We all know who those 6 are. Murdered after 11 months in a tunnel, after they were abused. One girl was 79 pounds. So we are here today in front of a very nice piece of real estate in New York City where these terrorists do not belong. They do not belong here. They say death to America. Don't say death to America. Get out of our country. These wonderful policemen who are protecting us today, they fight with them on the streets. So we are here to say, you are not welcome here. Release our hostages, not bring them home. Release our hostages. Since you took them, you kidnapped them from their homes. Right now, exactly. Release our hostages. Release our hostages. Release our hostages. It is now my pleasure to introduce somebody you all know, Shabbos Kestenbaum, an American Jewish activist who is suing Harvard University for failing to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitism. He addressed the Republican National Convention and has stood up for Jews on campuses and everywhere. Please help me welcome
Hello, hello. It's so great to be here. How are you all doing? You got to be louder than that. So listen, my name is Shabbos Kestenbaum. I'm a proud Orthodox Jew. I'm a proud first-generation American, and I'm the proud plaintiff suing Harvard University's ass for their failure to combat anti-Semitism on their campus. But look, I'll be quick. I just want to say this. In 1922, in 1928, in 1937, in 1948, in 1953, in 1967, in 1978, in 1994, in 2000, in 2002, in 2005, in 2008, 2014, and in 2020. Every one of those years was a year where the morons in that building rejected a two-state solution and rejected peace. There will only be peace when the Palestinian leadership care half as much about their own people than they do killing Jews. But the reality is, the Palestinian leadership, people like Mahmoud Abbas, Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, their network is in the upwards of billions of dollars. They did not make Gaza the Singapore of the Mediterranean. They did not build the West Bank into a progressive modern society. They built networks of terror tunnels. They indoctrinate their kids to kill and hate Jewish people. The onus is not on the state of Israel. The onus is not on the only democracy in the Middle East. The onus is not on the only society that accepts, embraces LGBTQ community members, women, that advances freedom and democracy. The onus is on the corrupt, anti-democratic, anti-Western, anti-Semitic leadership in that building. And it is a shame and a stain that the United States government has allowed these corrupt, murderous villains to live in New York City, to live in our home. We have the largest community of Jews anywhere outside of Israel. And we are here, not just as Jews, but as Americans, to stand up for our values, to say that hate and terrorism has no place in our city, has no place in our state, has no place in our country. And I will close by saying this: whether you are on a college campus, whether you are a professional, whether you are an activist, each and every one of us has a moral obligation to stand up, to fight back in whatever capacity. We must fight them in our college campuses. We must fight them in our streets. We must fight them in the halls of power, in the halls of Congress, on social media, in academia, because we are the Jewish people. We are proud of our values. We are proud of who we are, and we will not stop until those in this building are told to get the hell out of our country so that there can finally be peace in the Middle East, and that they release our hostages. Now, Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you, Shabbos. Neighborhood, when you pass by here every day, you'll see there's a police car out front. Our taxpayer money is paid to protect these terrorists, these criminals who hate America. All of you can call the mayor's office and tell him you are outraged and you want them kicked out as they were when President Trump was the president. So it's easy to kick them out. We just have to put on a lot of noise. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rachel Helman, known as Maggie 45. She's an outspoken gay Israeli activist who cares deeply for the Jewish community.
Can you see me? All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. You are not Jews with trembling knees. My name is Rachel Helman. I'm also known as Maggie, which is Maga, gay. I'm a proud Israeli American. I'm named after my great-grandmother, who was a Holocaust victim. She was slaughtered in Auschwitz. My grandfather, Moshe Helman, the only one who survived, immigrated to Palestina, Israel, where there were Jews and Arabs living together. Not peacefully. So the UN voted to partition the land. The Jews happily accepted it. They were celebrating in the streets. But the Arabs rejected it. They declined to live next to an established sovereign Jewish state. And they started a war against us. And we won that war. Since then, they continue attacking us, massacring us, terrorist attacks. They have done nothing to advance peace. They have done everything to promote more terrorism and more slaughter of Jewish people. They even pay for it. They pay for slaves. And it doesn't end there. They have been indoctrinating, brainwashing the children for decades to hate the Jews, to kill the Jews, to blame all the problems on the Jews. This delusional ideology didn't work. That's a definition of insanity. They've been trying again and again to annihilate us. In every generation they are trying to annihilate us. Yes, they do not succeed. We keep being victorious, and we never giving up. We are here today to demand from these terrorists in suits, terrorists in office. I can't believe this place even exists in New York City, that the UN acknowledge the terrorists, the inhumane creatures who on October 7th massacred 1,200 people. One of them is my distant cousin, Shira Shochat. She was brutally slaughtered by Hamas. She was burned alive in the Nahal Oz military base. She was 19 years old. The terrorists, the inhumane creature monsters who did that have been paid with the spade of slave. It's insanity that this is tolerable. We live in an upside-down world. So we're here today to demand, first of all, from Hamas and the Palestinian Authority to release all of our hostages now, unconditionally. Let our people go. Let our people go. Let our people go. And let our people go and surrender. You will not succeed. From the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, our Israel will always be. We're not going anywhere. Our Israel high forever. Thank you for being here and keep fighting.
Julia Hart, who you all know, is a reality TV star who speaks out loudly and proudly for Jewish rights in Israel. Julia? Thank you.
So, Martin Luther King, people don't realize this today because we have absolutely no historic perspective at all whatsoever, is that most of the white people who marched with Martin Luther King were Jews, right? We went into the South to defend black people from whatever crime they were. Jewish lawyers, yes, it's a joke about Jewish lawyers, except it's true. He once said, "We will not remember the voices of our enemies. We will remember the silence of our friends." And that is what we are here to do, to remind the people that we have defended. As a nation, Jewish people have been at the very forefront of every civic movement in history. Literally. Socialism, communism, LGBTQIA rights, civil rights for black people. Who has stood behind all these people? Jews have. And when we call to our friends, when we say, it is your turn to help us, where are their voices? Why is there silence? I genuinely cannot comprehend it. There's a lot of talk about the starvation and the lack of food and hygiene in Palestinian-run situations like Gaza. You know where that money is? Does anyone want to take a guess? It's in the pockets of the people who lead Hamas. The three top leaders of Hamas are worth, respectively, $3 billion, $4 billion, and $5 billion. So guess what? Terrorism isn't about religion. Terrorism is about control, power, and wealth. When you kill and murder in the name of God, we see you. We know it's a lie. The terrorists with the guns, they wouldn't be able to harm a single person if it wasn't the Palestinian Authority and the terrorists in suits that fund them. That's where their power comes from, not from God. It has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with control and money. And let me tell you one more thing. In Afghanistan, right, the Taliban just repealed a few rights of women, such as being able to speak. And I don't mean speaking publicly. I mean being able to speak in public. They are not allowed to speak in public. They have to be covered. By the time they're 9 years old, they can no longer go to school. This is the freedom that American college students are fighting for. This is the freedom that Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all of these organizations, this is the freedom they're offering. They're offering women to literally be told that they are not allowed to speak when they go outside. They can't look at a man that is not their relative. They cannot go to a doctor's office. This is the freedom that Hamas and the Palestinian Authority offer people. That is not a freedom. That is nothing less than murder and servitude. I look at all these faces and you're here because you already agree with me. And my question is, how do we get the people who don't agree with us to understand what's going on? How do we get the people who are supposed to be our friends, but who are sitting there silent? And I will not forget their silence. We should not forget their silence, because one thing I do know, truth always comes out. The Jewish people always survive. Jews are compared to an egg. Does anyone know why? Anyone have any idea why Jews are compared to an egg? I'll tell you why. Because the harder you boil it, the longer you boil us, the harder we get. We don't give up. We don't give in. We never stop fighting for each other. We never stop fighting for causes we believe in. And that's why I know they can have hundreds of billions more dollars than we have. They can have billions more people. What we have is truth, justice, courage, honor, and unity with us. And with those, there is no world in which we will not succeed. Chazak ve'amatz libchem. We will succeed as long as we stay strong. We ignore the voices of hate. You know, Abraham is the father of both the Jewish and the Muslim world. One of the explanations is why he was named Abraham, because he was me'ever l'naha. He always stood on the other side, against what was the norm, what was popular, what was cool. That is what the Jewish people have done for time immemorial. Stood for what was right, whether it was popular or not. And that is why no power, no wealth will ever defeat us, because we are Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. That's right. Not only will you not defeat us, but you'll get kicked out of New York City. Exactly. Our next speaker, Sarri Singer. She started an organization called Strength to Strength. She's a victim of terror herself and is suing the Iranian government because it is the Palestinian Islamic jihadists who blew up the bus that she was on, murdering everybody around her.
Did she invite you?
She invited me when I was like 1.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarri Singer, and as Hillary said, I'm the founder and director of Strength to Strength, an international organization that brings victims of terrorism together from around the world. 21 years ago, on June 11, 2003, I was on bus 14 in Jerusalem when an 18-year-old Palestinian terrorist boarded my bus strapped with explosives. He was 18 years old. He was the 8th kid that year that had been indoctrinated and radicalized on the Palestinian soccer field by Hamas to carry out attacks against innocent civilians in Israel. On that day, over 100 of us were injured and 17 innocent people were murdered, including everyone seated and standing around me. Even at this point, 21 years later, when I close my eyes, I'm brought back to that day. I remember the shockwave as it ripped through the bus, hurting and murdering innocent people. I remember the old woman that stayed with me on the side of the road until I got into the ambulance trying to keep me awake. And I'll never forget the people that stood by me, who I never met before, that stayed with me as if they were part of my own family. These attacks that have happened over the last almost year, since October 7th, are not the first time that Hamas has done this. In fact, they've been doing this for decades. I want to bring some things in to connect to the Palestinian Authority and why we're here today standing right at this spot. Hillary mentioned that I was on a suit against Iran. I sued Iran, and on June 17th, this past June 2024, I received a positive judgment against Iran for helping to sponsor and carry out my attack. But the most important thing is that we fight back in any way possible. And so I want to give you just some reference as to what some of the fighting back that's going on. On March 8th of 2016, an American citizen, Taylor Force, who served in Iraq and Afghanistan and graduated West Point, was in graduate school at Vanderbilt University and took a trip with his classmates to Israel for some kind of master's program they were doing. On March 8th, while they were at the Jaffa port, he was stabbed to death by a 21-year-old terrorist. His parents, Robbie and Stuart Force, didn't know what to do, but they felt they needed to do something to fight back. So they started going to Washington and fighting back legally, and in 2018, the Taylor Force Act was signed into law, which made it that U.S. government and the administrations going forward could not send foreign aid to the Palestinian Authority that would go towards the pay-for-slave program, which incentivizes terrorism in the Palestinian Authority and Gaza. And these laws were set into motion to make sure that our taxpayer money was not going to fund terrorism. Unfortunately, in the years following that, the new administration reinstated the foreign aid to the Palestinian Authority, of which over 60% of foreign aid that we send over of our taxpayer money goes to fund terrorism and to pay the families of terrorists indefinitely, depending on how many people they murder and how many people they injure. My terrorist who carried out my attack, his family is still getting paid every month a stipend, much more than anyone would ever even imagine, for murdering 17 people and injuring 109 innocent civilians. In December of 2022, Robbie and Stuart Force and myself, along with Congressman Ronnie Jackson from Texas from the 13th District, set into motion a lawsuit against the Biden administration, asking them to make sure that they uphold the law and stop sending money to the Palestinian Authority that incentivizes to carry out terrorist attacks. That lawsuit is still currently going on, and the courts have made it that we can move forward with this, and this is the first of a lawsuit of this kind against any type of government administration and the State Department. Now, there's a lot of work for all of us to do. You guys that are here are doing the work. When you come out at something like this, you are showing that we care and that our voices need to be heard. But it's not enough. When you leave here today, we need to remember that we can't just take the thoughts of all the speakers and that feeling of empowerment and then it just goes away the next day. We need to think about ways that we can continue fighting and doing things like this to make noise, because any amount of noise is helpful to everybody around the world, because terrorism is not just Israel's problem, it is a world problem. And we need to come forward and combat that hate wherever we are, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, Boko Haram, ISIS, any terrorist organization. They are all connected to each other and all funded by the largest enemy of our country, which is Iran. So I'm going to share with you that it is important for me to do what I need to do, but it's just as important for all of you to be doing what you need to do. We will continue to fight. We will continue to raise our voices. Darkness will never, ever extinguish the light. Evil will never, ever defeat good. And we will never, ever abandon Israel, especially in their time of need. I'm Israel Chai.
If any of you want this nice scarf I'm wearing also, I have them in my bag. For any of you who are on Instagram, I'm sure you know A.J. Edelman. And if you don't know him, you should be following him right now. He's an American-Israeli Olympian. Edelman is the first Orthodox Jew to compete in the Winter Olympics and is training for the 2026 Olympic Games. He's loud and proud and amazing.
I've never been described as amazing. That's wonderful. And if you're here for the comedy special, you're in the wrong city. So, I've had the privilege of going out across the nation, really, for the last 11 months. For those of you who don't know me, I am the captain of Israel's bobsled team, Edelman. It's a team comprised, very specially, of 4 Druze athletes. If you guys know the Druze, they're an Arab and ethnic religious minority in Israel. And we've had the privilege of going out across North America for the last 11 months and setting up in parks and hosting an open and honest debate about Israel. I set up a table, I say, change my mind, Israel is a force for good. Well, Palestinian leadership is a bunch of rotten, horrific, genocidal, evil terrorists. People come to the table and they love to argue. An argument is a perfect environment for anyone coming from a people who have major disagreements about whether they have to eat an egg or an olive's worth of bread before a Chag. Now, yesterday, as many of you know, was one of the more wonderful days in New York. It's pretty rare to get a day of such beautiful weather, right? He loves the speech too. But I have to say that that when I sat down underneath a tree with my dog, I have a very special dog, I sat underneath a tree and I looked out and I was pretty struck by the amount of children running this way and that without a care in the world. See, children are born without a victimhood mentality. Children are born with the opportunity to dream and become what they want to be. They're unencumbered by what adults place on them, the expectations that we have, the grievances that we have. And so as I watched this play out, I was struck by a sense of absolute sadness bordering on anger, because this is what the folks of the Palestinian Authority and Hamas have stolen from generations of Palestinian youth. This is the byproduct that a child born in Palestinian territories does not have that freedom, does not wake up and aspire and have the opportunity to have parents who want what's best for them. Instead, pay for slay. To become a shaheed, a martyr, is a better paying job for many children in the Palestinian authorities than becoming a doctor. And so the legacy of theft and rot and absolute misuse of funds for I guess we'd say about 100 years now, from Arab leadership and well-meaning Westerners, has absolutely robbed Palestinians. You want to know the real apartheid in Israel is if someone is born as an Arab Israeli, more is expected of them from their neighbors, from their parents, from their government, than their cousin who's born to Palestinian terrorist entities. It's a travesty, it's a crime, and it's what Israel has to fix. Now, what I wanted to really say here today is, do you guys feel, ever since 10/7, do you feel a connection with each other? Do you feel something so special between us? It's a bond. It's what we feel. It's what we feel when we walk into a Jewish home on Friday night. Right? It's what we feel when we hear Hebrew spoken as we're on the street, we turn around. Right? That's what we call the neshama. That's the collective Jewish soul. And it stands, and every single day it cries out for a better future. What we call tikkun olam, what people call tikkun olam, has words after it. It's really been co-opted nowadays, but tikkun olam is the taken olam b'malchut shaddai. Right? We have to repair the world that we inhabit ourselves. And one of the greatest things to debate about Israel is that Israel doesn't fight just for itself. It fights for everyone who believes in freedom. It fights for everyone who believes in goodness. And it fights for those Palestinian children, of which the Palestinian Authority themselves do not have enough respect for, do not have enough care for, do not have enough responsibility for, to demand from them a future for which they deserve. And so I'll leave you with the following message. I am a Jew, and Israel is my home. And when it comes to a future that we're fighting for, we're not fighting just for the security of Israel. We're fighting for a future in which Israeli children and Israeli parents do not need to wonder whether the person on the bus next to them means them harm. We do not need to wonder whether our children who are doctors are performing brain surgery on the next Sinwar, who, God willing, I believe he may be dead. Hopefully so. But that's what we fight for. We don't fight for ourselves. And so every single time someone comes to you and they say, why does Israel fight? Remember the following. Israel does not fight for its own children, because we always have fought for our own children. When we go to war, we fight for the children of others. We fight for Western society. We fight for a world that expects more from its children than to grow up and to murder other human beings. So please, go home today, hug your family tight, and always remember that we are on the side of good. An endless amount of good, a font of good. It's why I love representing Israel. It's why I love being Jewish. And most of all, I truly, truly hope that in the future, there can be a future in which the IDF, in which Israel has built, in which all children can grow up aspiring to be doctors and not terrorists, aspiring to care for their parents and not murder others, aspiring to have children of their own and not snuff out generations of families. Thank you guys very, very much. Be well, and Am Yisrael Chaim.
We got some great people here, ladies and gentlemen, as opposed to in that building where they're murderers, terrorists, anti-American. They hate America, which is why they say death to America. And those students that go around with the signs, we're all Hamas, also hate America and also say death to America. And our beautiful policemen, who I want to thank, who are the best in the world, get beaten up by these guys when they try to arrest them as they're attacking innocent people. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sophie Sasson, not only a good friend of mine, but she makes the word activist look like a whole new meaning.
I want you all to ponder on one thing. What is Palestinian identity created by Yasser Arafat? It is merely a play of words. Palestinian identity is an ideology, and the core focus of that ideology is the destruction of Israel. Today's latest blood libel, Jewish blood libel, is human rights violations. This is what the new hate has become. Human rights violations. Now surely human rights would focus on freedom. Their human rights only focuses on one thing, and that's sovereignty. And they want that sovereignty from the river to the sea. The core of Palestinianism is Israel's eradication. The people are mere pawns for the cogs, and the cogs are rich, sitting in Qatar, and they play on human rights and bleeding liberals to pay for slaves, to give them money. There are 0 Jews in Ramallah. There are 0 Jews in Nablus. There are 0 Jews apart from our hostages in Gaza. Yet there are 2 million Jews living happily, freely, and equally, 2 million Muslims, happily, equally, and freely living in Israel. The numbers don't lie, the Palestinians do. Clearly, all you Palestinian terrorists, have underestimated exactly who we are. We have survived for centuries. Our survival and resilience is in our DNA. Our faith is in our veins. And we aren't going anywhere. We are going to fight the fight, but we will wait for morality to take hold, because this country is suffering. And it's suffering from media manipulation. It's suffering from violence on campuses. Anti-Semitism is rife. And we expect Americans to wake up to understand that this has nothing to do with Judaism. We are a mere excuse for jihad. And I hope we can all wake up and call terrorism, terrorism, and protect America and Israel. Thank you.
So that cab driver just said, free Palestine. And he's right. We have to free Palestine from Hamas. We have to free Palestine from jihad. We have to free it, for sure. My mother's passport said Palestinian. Because you know who the first Palestinians were? The Jews. The Jews. So although they tried to take over, and from the river to the sea, you will not get rid of me. It is now my pleasure, because what do we do as Jews? We don't attack people, we don't behead people, we don't rape people. We do the right thing. We pray for others, and we make this world a better place. It is now my honor to introduce Peretz, who has the most beautiful voice, who will be singing the Mishubera for the Chayalim and Hatikva. Wait till you hear his voice.
Hi everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you Hillary, thank you to the NYPD. Before I begin with Hatikva, I want to dedicate this rendition of it to my sister, who is in Israel with her husband and their 6 children in Tzfat, being bombarded when their children cannot sleep. Her children are telling her anything that has to do with sleep they do not want to do because they're terrified that they're going to have to go to the shopping for the next siren. So, with that being said, please sing with me, sing your hearts out. And I want my sister in Israel, Bezrat Hashem, to hear it. And if you can't scream Hatikva, scream with your heart. And all our brothers and sisters and everyone there will hear us and feel us.
Thousands of IDF soldiers who are risking their lives every day to protect Israel and protect Jews all around the world. Peretz will be leading us in the Mishu Beirach for the Chayalim. If you know the words, please sing. If not, please make sure you say Amen when he's done.
מן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה ביבשה באוויר
City Police Department, we are so grateful for you that you're out here protecting us. We really, really appreciate it. You guys are great. We love you not just today, but every day. Thanks, everybody. Remember, Am Yisrael Chai, you're never going to get rid of us. From the river to the sea, Jews will always be. Good night, everybody.
I saw you in the video, and I saved it.